talking about templates, FileMaker is the easiest way to create a custom app. And so if you go to the FileMaker site now, they've really actually, I think in the last week or two, increased, I think they've done some changes to the website that are really positive. I don't think they even announced it. It's just been, they've added a couple more videos that I think are really good for explaining what FileMaker is. And they now have tutorials and training that are focused around the starter templates. So when you click on the templates under the Learn tab, you get access to 3 templates that kind of have training that go with them. This job tracking template, the event management template, and the memberships template. And so these are new. They've only been there for a few months, I think. But it's kind of, it's trying to move people who have never used FileMaker into a solution as fast as possible, as easily as possible, and learning how to use the tool right off of the FileMaker website. Previous to that, FileMaker 17 actually does have different templates. There's what they call starter templates that are built in. There's this row here, if you go under File, Create New, and you'll see these. So there's starter templates. They have assets, contacts, content management, inventory, meetings, and tasks. And then they also have what they call sample files. So the sample files, I think, are even more basic than the starter solutions. But there wasn't really any training around these in the past. You know, so there's no video training around them. It's just open it up, take a look, and see if you can get started that way. Now, yeah.
I've always struggled with what's the difference between a starter and a sample. Why are there 2 categories?
I think that the only difference is that the samples were originally created like in an earlier version of FileMaker, and they kept them around. And then I don't know if it was FileMaker 16 or something, they came out with starter solutions, and they just left them there.
Yeah, I think they're using the samples more of as, here's the things that you can do, or here's how it might look like. But to my knowledge, the only ones that have these add-ons are the ones that are in the starter solutions that you do the add-ons to. The samples on the bottom, I don't believe have any options, just plumb on.
I think we're going to want to get the roaming microphone over there if we're going to record important things like what you guys are saying and stuff. So if you could grab that. Yeah, so there is some overlap. You see there's an inventory starter template and there's an inventory sample file. They're just different. I think it's mostly historical that they didn't want to get rid of the old ones as long as they have them available. I believe Soliant Consulting created all of these samples, or was it they subcontracted them out to some of them to other companies, primary Soliant, because they had created the training, the original foundation, which is no longer being updated at all.
15 was the last version of the FileMaker training series that Soliant or that FileMaker paid for, and they made an announcement to discontinue the updates to it.
And that was a thick book that primarily I would use it to study for the certification exam.
And it was a great training resource, and there's still nothing out there that is as thorough and as complete. And you know, whenever I talk with students in classes about the material, and Anna was a student some years ago now already, in the same way that when you get a new version of Microsoft Excel, if you have a manual from a previous version, you're still going to be able to use about 99% of what you already learned there. So it's still a valuable resource, and you can download it for free. They're giving it away in FileMaker on the website and Learning, and then down towards the bottom, underneath their videos and whatnot, there's a link for, I think, archived resources, and click on that, and you'll dig in, and there's some really great resources.
So I think really what FileMaker is focusing on now is the primary documentation that they provide, or is in the videos that they have online, which are more basic, and then also the help files and the update files, that the documentation, internal documentation within the solution itself. So they're relying really on, I mean, it's an opportunity at some levels for any third-party training company to, and there's about 3 video training courses out there primarily that are updated with every version. It's really difficult too, because the versions of FileMaker now come out every year. So every year, updating all of that training for the new version is quite a lot of work. I mean, you basically have to be working in parallel as FileMaker is finalizing things to try and get that out in a timely fashion. So this is a comparison. So I pulled the event management sample file off of, let's see, where is it? There's here's the event management sample file that comes within FileMaker. And you can see this is the relationship graph behind that. And it's designed really for a first-time user. It's not designed with, so to speak, best practices of how we would build a solution, in that event ID match field wouldn't normally be the name of a field that you would, quite often we name those with an underscore at the beginning so that they sort to the top, and just maybe the word ID, various different best practices. And also, this is definitely not an anchor buoy kind of, so it's, I mean, right from the start, the sample file, get you started, give you some ideas, but it's not best practices for how to use FileMaker. And the event management then template, which is new, which is the one that's available from FileMaker's website, this is what the relationship graph looks like there. And you see it's completely different. It is anchor buoy. There's a lot more documentation internally here about the event table and how it's related to these things, and where it's used. But these yellow post-it note kind of things on the relationship graph are internal documentation. So it's different, it's better, and I think that there's video training around it too, so it can bring somebody forward faster in learning. I don't know if you're familiar with FileMaker Off the Record as a podcast, but it's been out for a little while, and Thomas Mokwa is a friend in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He owns Profile Developers, and so it's his podcast. Thomas Mokwa and Teresa Heistund talk back and forth, and they did a couple of months ago a podcast comparing many of the FileMaker starter solutions, and so that's something you can subscribe to. There are a couple other, there was another FileMaker podcast, but I don't think they're doing it anymore. So there's archives of other, so this is one that's live and out there, still actively. You can see that it was on March 9th they did third-party starter files. And so they included in those starter field files, I didn't take all the notes, but one of the most, I think 4 of the most popular ones, which they included, ours as well, our FMPUG-MN starter, which was, they were pretty kind with it. I mean, it's like they said that it competes with the others as well. But FM Starting Point from RCC Consulting, or RC Consulting, Richard Carlton, that FM Starting Point has been out there forever. It's kind of the default go-to FileMaker starter solution, because even compared to the other ones that come with it, it's much more built out, and there's a ton of training, video training that's out there around that. So you might run into solutions that you've seen that are built on top of it. It's had over 641,000 downloads in 9 years, so it's out there.
So I'm curious how many other people have downloaded and looked at the guts behind FM Starting Point?
Yeah, it's a great file to go and learn, and even some of the more advanced videos now have some integrations that you can learn from within that tool as well.
Yeah.
There's FM Quick Start, which is from DB Services. I haven't looked a lot at this solution. I don't know if any of you have, but it's another. Quite commonly, it's a CRM with some other additional functionality, and it's being given away for free. So here's what I would say are some of the downsides of the starter solutions, especially the starter solutions that come directly from FileMaker. I think they work well in very simple cases, but they create data silos because they duplicate a lot of the information. If you were to use the assets template and the context template, they don't talk to each other at all. They're completely separate, and you're not going to get the advantage of being able to pull up the list of contacts from one and assign an asset to that contact. They use different user interface designs, so even if you were going to use them together, they might look completely differently. So there really are learning examples. They're not fully practical as far as using it just out of the box. And because there's multiple files, then even if you were to, they're actually not even sharing the same security for logging into it, because they're physical. When you create the solution, you're getting a separate file rather than another table within one file. So I can speak a little bit to FMignite Starter, which is the starter solution we provide for free, and it is integrated with contacts. It has a dashboard, invoices, products, and then there's a setup. So there's a basic integration between those three items, and it's free. It's really easy to migrate from this to our full-fledged FMignite if you wanted to, because the field names are all the same. It's fully open and modifiable. I think it's very well designed, and it is using.
We can say that about it too.
Yeah, I think I'm tooting my own horn here. So, but it's like, so it is really using development best practices, because so it may be a little bit more complex if you've never used FileMaker before, but if you're familiar with how FileMaker solutions are created, you're going to see the field naming conventions and the relationship graph the way it should be. It's ready to use with our other tools as well. And one of the things that I think is very unique about this compared to some of the other starter templates is that you can save on FileMaker licensing and hosting. That's a relatively new thing that we have. So if you buy this FMignite Starter as a SaaS model, we can provide FileMaker licensing and hosting for only even one person. Like right now, the minimum of FileMaker licensing is at 5 users. But if you had a client potentially that only was going to have 2 users, we can sell that for significantly less money. And we sell the hosting, FMignite Starter, and the FileMaker licensing all as a bundle, like it's a SaaS solution. And it's actually costs less than if you were, so less than if you were only going to get the hosting and the licensing.
So are you doing that under the SBA program?
Yes. So it's under the SBA program. So it becomes a fully editable file that you can customize however you want and add on however you want, but you need to start with FMignite Starter.
Yep. Can you go back a slide?
Sure.
So one of the things that I really liked how you named it was that 4th bullet about calling these starter solutions learning examples. For the solutions that are out there, and I downloaded Richard Carlton Consulting's system, and it's a phenomenal system, but working in that system provided a lot of challenges because every development house kind of has their own conventions, and there were a number of things that were done the last time that I downloaded, which was probably 6 years ago, I did not like at all. And because of the connectivity of them, trying to add something in or take something out was a challenging process in and of itself. Although, if the business model fits, it's really phenomenal. When you're looking at the starter solutions from FileMaker, one of the things that I wanted to chat about was how is it going to impact our work as primarily consultants or in-house developers? Is there anything for us to take out of it that we can glean? Is it going to impact our business one way or another? And, even just looking at the starter solutions that are there, you can download just one portion of it, or you can download it with all the add-ons or build-ons, I think is what they're calling them. And my first thought is, why in the world would you only download one when you can buy, or download for free the whole complete set? So it makes sense to download the complete set. But even if you add them on, even just looking at the relationships graph and how things is set up in a spider methodology, it really makes it difficult to, and as if you've ever had to fix somebody else's system, to disconnect and reconnect and do all that extra work in scripts and layouts and calculations, security, all of it. As you said, Tim, it's not fully practical. It's great for what it is, but I think as you meet with people who say, hey, I hear there's some starter solutions. We do events. Yes, there's an event starter solution. To position it as such, because most of us have been around this block long enough to know that at some point they're going to say, oh, and can you? And all of a sudden that starter solution is not going to be meeting the needs of the client.
It's sometimes a difficult sell because it sounds like it's out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
I buy FileMaker.
And it's free and it's beautiful.
I get the free starter solution. I'm off to the races.
Yep.
But there is a good amount of work to customize, to build on top, and to learn how to use FileMaker. Even though it's the easiest to use FileMaker database solution, application development solution, workplace innovation platform
Good
in
plug.
the world.
Thank you. He took a long time getting there, didn't he?
It's still challenging. It's still, there isn't a tool that just magically meets all of your needs. So.
Yeah. So the other thought, and this just comes from parenting, is that for those of you who've got kids or nieces or nephews, or you're just a rascally child yourself, sometimes your children aren't ready to learn the hard lessons, and they need to stumble around for a while, and they need to fight through it, and they need to realize that I can't do this on my own, or mom and dad did actually make sense when they were saying something. And no amount of talking to them, no amount of preaching, teaching, encouraging, supporting, disciplining, none of it is going to make them come to the point where they can say, you're right, we really need to do this differently. They're going to have to go through that process. So this is one of the reasons why it's good to keep connections with clients who said no the first time around and said, I'm going to do it my own way.
Yeah.
Encourage them, support them, but there's a good chance that they'll be coming back.
Yeah, you have to always be kind with people, but
Absolutely.
we run into people that it's like, even I was on a sales call a week ago, and the guy said, well, so I'll just take this weekend and build out that solution for
Knock yourself out, buddy.
And I'm like, we have more than 5,000 hours for sure built into FMIgnite, our main product. That's like coding 3 years straight in a row. It's like 24 hours a day or something. It's not a no-code platform. It's not a. It could be considered potentially a low-code. It's a workplace innovation platform. That's how it really FileMaker is positioned. You have to do work in order to get it to do everything you want as custom software. So, we done with that slide? Okay.
Yes, thanks.
Let's see what. Okay, so those were all the slides I had. Really, I mean, we can open it up. Anyone else have other comments or about starter templates?
So something that I know we've been involved in discussions about before over the past years related to this tangentially perhaps is the idea, like if something fits your company out of the box, I'm not speaking to you, I mean, speaking to our potential clients, or if you're an in-house developer, to your, work group, whoever you're working for. If it fits out of the box, why are you using FileMaker? And I'm curious who FileMaker is. This is a very open-ended question. Who is FileMaker targeting, and with what motive with these platforms? Because like, if this thing works for me, then I have to pay for FileMaker licensing, a server if I want to share it among people, or some kind of hosting in the cloud or whatever. But Salesforce is cheaper. Daylight is cheaper. Act is cheaper. And
Well, it depends on the number of users.
well, depending, yeah, I mean,
the number of
there
modules and things.
but for somebody who's looking at something that's that simple, that's that, I can just download this and use it. I kind of wonder who they're after with that.
I think that they have to provide some out-of-the-box value immediately, otherwise somebody goes, once you sold them to buy FileMaker, and they open the package and there's absolutely nothing to look at because it's just a development environment, they would be really sad.
Well, I don't know, because I don't do any other development work. Do other development environments provide out-of-the-box solutions? And, some other application, I mean, like Xcode. There's no, you don't download Xcode from Apple and do you get a bunch of stuff that's like, oh, well, now that you have Xcode, here's this here's this game you can just play, or...
Well, I think there are sample files for, explaining how to use various things. Maybe there might be some small games or things, that people have out there. Similar to the templates that are in FileMaker. It's about learning.
My thought is it's a foot in the door.
Yeah.
Once somebody figures out that, hey, I can go in, I can change some names, I can add a new layout, I can do some basic things. At some point, you're going to get some buy-in, you're going to get investment, and pretty soon they're going to have all these records in there. And then the thought of having to redo all of that in Act or AirDB or pick something. My feeling is that it's a foot in the door. And in the same way, I don't know how many other people here got a computer science degree. I got an English degree and was planning to be a teacher when I fell into FileMaker. So I was able to learn how to do things without having to get that kind of training. But until somebody said, hey, try this, and I started poking at it, I wouldn't have even had a start. But I think my theory is that they're trying to push it just simply to get it in more people's computers, just as, again, a foot in the door. And then once, people say, hey, I can do this, I can figure this out, it just kind of sucks you in, and then you're working for the University of Minnesota, and all of a sudden, oh my goodness, what am I doing at the developer conference? And there you go, things happen, so.
Yeah,
Say people that the free trial is targeted for. Those who would be downloading the free trials are the ones who are going to benefit from the starters.
I often compare FileMaker to Excel. As when you buy Excel, you don't get the spreadsheet that's going to do exactly what you need it to. But you can go into Excel, and when you click on New, you can pull up some sample templates of various things. Like here's a family budget template, or so they give you some starting point solutions similar to how FileMaker does. They're not going to work. They're not going to do everything that you want to do in Excel.
So based on the whole workplace innovation platform thing, and yeah, their videos highlight the guy in the back of the van who surfs 6 hours a day and works 2 hours a day or whatever, that's totally like all of our lives. But money-wise, I feel like that's not who they're aiming for. Like, I think, and they're upping the scale of the servers to handle more users, to be more efficient, to, and so on. That's not really that's not really FileMaker's bread and butter. And in my own personal experience, it seems like people have already exhausted the out-of-the-box solutions by the time they come to FileMaker. They've already tried keeping a contact list in Excel. They've already tried, using the contacts database in their phone, and so on. And they've already exhausted that. Like, they know that the one-size-fits-all solution doesn't work for them.
Yeah.
anymore.
And I think FileMaker, FileMaker much more in the past used to be like ClarisWorks in that it was a personal database kind of tool. It's like I could be one person and I'm going to create a database for myself. Now the bar of entry for FileMaker is $500 per year, or if you just went out and bought FileMaker by itself, it's $500. That's kind of a high bar. You need to really know as a personal user that I'm going to use it and I'm going to like it, and you can do the trial. But it's really pushed towards work groups. I mean, it's like they want business users that are going to be 5 user minimum.
And every year.
And every year they're going to pay for that solution. So the bar of entry for FileMaker is really around a couple $1,000s a year for 5 users and hosting. And so you have to know that you want custom software, and that's the only thing that will work, because otherwise, if there is a off-the-shelf app, go use it.
And my question to FileMaker would be, if that's your barrier to entry, who of that group, of that 5 user, several $100s minimum or thousands of dollars a year, for whom of that group of people do these starter solutions appeal to? Like,
Right.
who do they make sense for?
Yeah, and so I guess it's always been a marketing difficulty challenge for FileMaker in knowing if they're marketing towards a developer or if they're marketing towards the non-developer that's going to learn how to do development. And here's for example a new video that this one is a very professional video.
Your team is in a work rut.
Yes, this works.
To show what FileMaker is. And, it's like a 30-second video. They have another one. They have a couple other ones out here now that are more prominently displayed. And I think that those kind of videos really communicate the value of FileMaker.
Absolutely.
So,
Or at least they're leaning in that direction, and somebody who's going to spend, a couple grand a year minimum
right.
on something would respect that versus respecting, the value of something where we've got Mr. Man Bun or, Beat Lord.
Oh, is that at the bottom? Yep. Oh, yeah. Oh, I was intentionally hiding it. It was like, don't
We were so
scroll to
hopeful.
the
You got our
bottom.
hopes up, man. Got our hopes up.
Yeah. So they're trying to lead you through here. It's like, what is it? And then how can I learn about it?
Yep. So if that's achieving the goals, great. And then a lot of people who, again, are downloading the trial and playing with some starter apps, they may end up knocking on our door at some point, which would be great.
They're doing a better job in saying now that you can do it yourself, or you can choose to partner with an expert.
Right. Right.
Whereas before they used to say, it was so easy, anyone can do it, which is really just totally marketing speak.
Yep. I guess you need to look at which horse is doing the speaking and.
So, any other thoughts or ideas about templates?
Just one comment. For people who download just one of the starter solutions and want to do the add-on pieces, the only way that you can add on to it is to create a portal. And in the select, which relationship you want to use, I think that's the only place to actually add on some of the other modules, and there are a limited number of modules that you can.
You're talking about going into layout mode here.
And an add-on is just basically an external data source that you're adding?
It actually pulls the table into that existing file, builds some connections to the keys, and builds a relationship and sets up some basic.
Okay. Okay.
New add-on table.
This is the new feature. This came out in 17.
This is actually, was it 17 or 16?
I think it was just the.
Is it 17?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you can add on a table, and this is, I guess you could say these are templates, starter templates as well. I mean,
Absolutely.
but they're hidden within this dialogue of add-on tables. So I'm on a contact here, and I could add on addresses. So I could store within this portal a pre-built multiple addresses for this particular contact. So you really have to make these decisions at the beginning when you're first building the solution, because otherwise it's going to change your data model.
Right, so now going to the relationships graph.
So it created that portal with all those fields, and
Yep, so basic functionality, it's nice.
automatically added this relationship.
Actually added the one on the bottom it already
yeah,
had.
because there already was one.
Yeah,
So it added this one, and it just calls it foreign key to primary key. So again, that's not normally how you would name those IDs, but it did that work for you. It created this addresses field table automatically with all those fields in there.
I think it also creates some scripts automatically too.
Yes, there's depending on which one you choose, there's some functionality that's built into this. So you can click on this to delete it. You can, so the scripts that come along with that. There's the add script. That's the only script that was, I think, added.
Yeah.
So it basically when you, I don't even know is that triggered off of when you choose the type?
yeah, choose type and you enter, yep, and then it just adds a row.
It runs that script and then goes to the right field so you can start entering.
Yep. So it's always fun if you're on one of the webinars and you post a question, they actually answer your question. It's like, yes, I got a good question. And Robert Holsey answered the question that I asked that had to do with, so are we going to be able to create modules and say, I want this to be part of my add-on module list, and then have that show up in a list and have it bada boom, bada bing, pull in layouts, portals, scripts, security, whatever it is that going to happen? And he answered the question with, well, I like how you're thinking. That's something that we're looking at.
Yeah, I think FileMaker 18, which is under NDA, because it hasn't been released yet, is going to have features that enable that kind of thing. It's not going to be in the tool, but the ability to, they're moving towards that, what we know.
Yep.
Modularity and being able to manage your FileMaker solution with different versions and
Yep.
things.
Okay.
Yes.
Baby steps.
You got a large installed base of users that they have to continue to bring forward
Yeah.
into the new world. Okay.
Do you know if, can you customize the default fields that come in with the add-on using the same?
I think the add-on tables or modules are stored as XML. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think that I don't think it's going to pull your standard fields into it. It's going to pull whatever the standard
Whatever it came
field
with.
names they've defined. So you'd have to, if you had a different naming convention for your created and modified dates and things like that, you'd have to go and rename things.
Or maybe find that XML file somewhere.
Yeah, and you can find them. I don't recall where they are offhand, but I think they're accessible within your normal FileMaker Pro folder.
They're trying to get that balance to make it as easy and accessible as possible for the first-time user, but also have the features that most developers that have been using FileMaker for a long time need.
Yep. Cool.
Okay.
All right.